Hello and welcome to the July 12th edition of the OSM Community Call. Just to let everyone know, this call is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. If you're not familiar with the Code of Conduct, please visit the repo for the Code of Conduct markdown file. We'll have all the information on how to participate in these meetings and be respectful. All right, so with that out of the way, we got a decent sized agenda for this week. And let me go ahead and share out that agenda because I think what I'm going to do is I'd like to kind of highlight some of the key PRs for the last month. And then if anyone else in the community would like to highlight a PR about anything that they thought was interesting that was updated, please let us know and so that we can highlight that activity. So go ahead and share out my screen. Okay, I think I have
Looks
broadcasted.
good.
Okay, so first off, congratulations, both Keith Maddox and Sean Tilling have been promoted up to OSM maintainers. I think Keith is on the call, so claps to you, Keith, and I'm not sure if Sean is here, but again, congratulations to you both and all the great work that you've been doing for the meeting. I'm sorry, for the project. Um, and, I don't know, Keith, you want to say anything?
Speech.
Yeah, I'm just happy. No, I'm just really thankful to be a part of the team and looking forward to the awesome stuff we'll continue to build.
All right, thank you. And again,
Oh,
we're
and I think
so
Sean
happy.
just joined too.
Oh, Sean. Hey, welcome, Sean. We were just kicking off the agenda, and first order was to congratulate both you and Keith for being promoted to OSM maintainers. So again, thanks for your efforts in the community and into this project. All right. So with that, next, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through some key PRs from the last month and just kind of highlight some things. Again, there's always an abundance of PRs. I just kind of pick some things that I think are, very notable to the community, kind of know what's happening with the project. But again, if I've missed one that you feel is of importance and you just want to bring it up to the community, please go ahead and chime in. I'm gonna start from the top. So the first one, this was actually brought from Muda, and this was about showing messages for no mesh in the CLI. So thanks again, Muda, for bringing that issue up, and I believe that has been resolved there, and so that's now PR'd in 4738. The next, there's an abundance here of PRs around rate limiting work. I know Shashank, not sure if he's on the call, he's been doing just tremendous work in bringing rate limiting to OSM. So we have just a whole plethora of PRs here that if you want to kind of look at all of that activity, you can actually click on those links and see all the information or all of the work that was involved in getting rate limiting going. So again, thanks to you, Shashank. I know you've been leading the effort on getting that in. Next, this is just kind of standard security stuff. So we did resolve the CVE for this year, 31030, and that is upgrading to container deeds version 1.5.13. So yeah, we're trying to keep all the moving pieces and components safe. We also did add requirements for sizing and the kind of labels. So again, this really helps us keep a nice clean taxonomy in the repo and ensure that when we are creating work items that we are sizing them appropriately, as well as putting them in the right labels so that we know what category it's fall under. So that's been put in. The other here, this is about not allowing the sidecar privilege escalation. What we're saying is if you are in an environment where you're actually looking at what privilege containers are running in the environment, OSM was getting flagged. And thanks to Keith here, we've actually made a change there to ensure that Envoy sidecar is not coming up privileged. And so therefore, if you have any of those softwares that are looking for privileged type of containers running, they should no longer be triggered by OSM.
One quick clarification there, Phil.
Yeah, go ahead.
That PR will stop the Envoy sidecar from being flagged, but the init container still
Right.
does require admin privileges. So
Okay,
just wanted to call that out.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And this is probably for a future talk as we look to possibly resolve that in implementation of CNI. So yeah, thanks for clarifying that there, Keith. And last but not least, again, user-friendly defaults for the egress and permissive mode. So I think today now we default to, is it allowing egress out, I'm assuming, and then we still do have permissive mode as default. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Sean, was that something you worked on?
Yeah, I believe that was your PR there, Sean. Is it default to no permissive mode and egress out? Or is it the other way around? I can't remember the right implementation of the
Neither of the
configuration on that.
defaults were very friendly, so neither permissive mode was enabled nor egress.
Okay.
And now they're both enabled by default.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thanks, Sean, for doing that. So that's it. If anyone wants to chime in, if they got any other PRs that they thought they would like to highlight, feel free to go ahead and chime in. If not, Keith, right before we move to you, because you're going to update us on FIPS work, I do just want to introduce the community to Whitney. She's actually joined the OSM team here at Microsoft, and we're glad to have her. And sorry to put you on the spot, Whitney, but do you want to kind of intro yourself to the community?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Whitney. I have been in Microsoft for over 3 years now, and I just switched over to the OSM team. So I'm excited to be part of the Kubernetes container space now. And Alessandro, you look pretty familiar. I think we have worked together in the past on some project, but I'm happy to meet everyone, and I'll be present in these calls.
All right, we're super excited
Welcome.
that you're
So glad
here
to
with
hear.
us, Whitney, and look forward to all the work you'll be contributing on the project here in the near future. Okay, with that, Keith, you're next up on to talk about FIPS. I went ahead and stopped my sharing. If you want to share anything, Keith, feel free to, but the floor is yours if you want to kind of update us on some of the FIPS work that you've been part of working on.
Okay, and I just got permissions to share, so let me go ahead and do that. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, you are broadcasting.
Yep, we're looking at the doc.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to bring up a couple of a small PR and then a CI run. So we've been tracking a pretty common feature request here at OSM, which is FIPS compliant images for the project, and I kind of randomly went down a rabbit trail of seeing what it would take to get this implemented, and I've got an issue to track that here on the repo for the OSM control plane specifically. So not touching the sidecar yet, but specifically talking about the OSM control plane. And I've submitted a draft PR that's essentially a POC for what it would take to make the OSM control plane FIPS compliant. And for those of you who aren't familiar, FIPS compliance is essentially a set of approved cryptographic protocols that can be used for things like TLS encryption and certificate signing and things like that. And so for people who are running in secure environments, a lot of governments who need like FedRAMP, overall compliance FIPS is a part of that. And what I've done essentially is build out a CI pipeline that will and that goes through all of our tests and integration tests, linting, et cetera, with a FIPS compliant version of Go, building OSM, which will eventually spit out a FIPS compliant version of the OSM control plane. And we have so the way this works is that there is like I said, a FIPS compliant Go image that we're building from. And that Go image has a special Go package called FIPS only that you can add to your program that will validate that you're not and check that you're not using any TLS things that aren't FIPS compliant at runtime. And so the FIPS compliant builds of OSM will have this flag in each executable. And there are other things that we do, like we built with CGO and some other stuff that you can check out here in the PR. And the result of this change is this green, a bit of time to get this all green, but this green CI run of our end-to-end tests, Go build, etc. There are a couple of superfluous like FIPS flags that I'm turning on, so I'll trim this down a little bit. But this is very very promising for the ability to make OSM FIPS compliant. And to clarify some terminology here, because I tripped myself up on this today, there's a difference between FIPS compliance and FIPS verification. FIPS verification is when you essentially create a machine image and send it off to usually a government or a government contractor lab for verification, and that process takes a few weeks. And this is not that. This is merely FIPS. This is FIPS compliance, which is still a bar for a lot of, like I said, these secure environments. And for FIPS compliance, essentially, you just need to make sure you're not using any unverified cryptographic modules, and that's what this process does. It verifies we're not using any non-verified, non-FIPS verified cryptographic modules. This is an open SSL based FIPS compliant Go. So if you care about that, that's a FYI. The next steps here, as far as getting images pushed out, is to talk with the OSM maintainers and then the rest of the team to figure out, what's the working model going to be? Are we going to have a long-lived FIPS branch? Are we going to just cherry pick commits onto that branch each release? Just discuss that. But once that's done, the control plane at least should have images, FIPS compliant images released. And from there, we can try to address the Envoy sidecar. Try to address Envoy sidecar, FIPS compliant images. I will say that Project Contour actually has a whole link that I will paste here in the chat. If I can find the chat, I'll post it in the chat in a second. If you're someone who doesn't necessarily want to wait on us to build a FIPS compliant Envoy sidecar, this is a whole guide on how to build that. If you happen to have your own FIPS compliant Envoy, then you can configure OSM to use that image via our Helm chart. So yeah, that's kind of the latest for FIPS compliance. Bridget, I see you got your hand raised.
Hi, I have a question. You talk about, hey, if you want to build a FIPS compliant image, and I think, is there a reason people wouldn't want to? Does it not work with other things? Is it like you're making trade-offs, or is there a reason that we wouldn't want this to just be the standard default? Can you talk a little bit about the decision process or help people understand that?
Sure, absolutely, and that's a fantastic question. So the big difference with FIPS versus the regular images is that you're actually, for Go, you're going to be calling out to C modules instead of using the actual Go runtime. So for certain things, like if you want to do like an AES or a RSA is a good example for private public key stuff. If you want to create an RSA private public key pair, what the FIPS version will do is it'll actually call out to the open SSL share object on the images OS, loose terminology here, and it'll call C in order to generate that, as opposed to using vanilla the regular Go runtimes version of those same modules. So there are some there are also some trade-offs as far as the actual compliant TLS settings. So for instance, with FIPS 140-2, you can't use TLS 1.3, which is the latest, most secure version of the TLS, or many even know as SSL or HTTPS version 1.3. That's not allowed in FIPS compliance. Organizations do have to make a trade-off between what's FIPS compliant and what's actually the latest industry standard, what's considered most secure, because that verification process does take a long time. So that's a good question. And for the OSM project, we want to kind of allow our users to make the choice that best benefits them in their organization. Phil?
Yeah. So again, great work on this. And I know this is just specifically tackling the control plane, but couple of questions. I just want to clarify this. So in this build, it's a FIPS only communication, right? Or is there anything in additional that you have to do to speak, use FIPS for the communication?
I think I understand. You're asking, does the user have to change any flags or anything on their end?
Yeah, like if they are using these images, are they guaranteed that it is just communicating FIPS throughout the control plane?
Yeah. So that line of Go that I showed earlier, that FIPS only package, what that will do is it'll detect any non-FIPS compliant configuration. So like I mentioned, the TLS v 1.2 is the maximum FIPS compliant TLS version. It'll actually detect that line when it's in your code, and with this OSM image, it'll detect if you're using TLS 1.3 and actually change it to use TLS 1.2. So that's one level of verification. Additionally, so what that doesn't do is it doesn't check to make sure that when you're executing, when you're doing a RSA private public key pair, for example, that line doesn't make sure that doesn't automatically go to the OpenSSL version. The way that happens is through an environment variable, go FIPS equals 1. And we actually, in the image building process, we set that environment variable in the container. So if the user doesn't touch anything, then it'll be FIPS compliant. You could also set that behavior to use OpenSSL modules. You can do it either with FIPS, go FIPS equals 1 environment variable, or there is a Linux setting that you can set for FIPS, for a FIPS setting, and users can use that as well. If the user overrides one of those two to be non-FIPS, specifically the environment variable, if the user overrides the environment variable, then we no longer it's not going to be using those FIPS modules. But by default, if you just plug those that image into your OSM installation, you should be good to go.
Okay. And then secondly, well, I guess I want to touch on something that Bridget mentioned, which is something slightly associated. So obviously, if you're going to run FIPS, there's going to be a little more cycles on the kernel. I'm assuming, we just completed kind of like a test harness with all of our perf and scalability. I'm assuming we probably need to have a side-to-side, another report, because I don't think it makes sense to just have a FIPS only compliant. There's probably going to be environments that they don't need this high level of, security. And I do know that there's probably some overhead with this that we probably want to ensure people kind of understand.
Good question. So as far as the performance of the user traffic, so traffic going in between the user's services in the cluster, what we call data plane traffic, the OSM control plane actually doesn't affect that performance. That's solely based on how fast the Envoy sidecar can take those requests and proxy them. Now, the FIPS compliant Envoy image may, in fact, see some latency increases from using FIPS because it's having to call out to usually a different module, though it's bundled in the image. But that's the OSM control plane work that I just showed doesn't affect the actual latency. There will probably be there might be some latency as far as like updating the proxy itself, with new configuration. But you make a good point that that's something we're going to want to add to our performance metrics and publish those for the community so that folks can see what they're going to be kind of signing up for. The general rule, though, I would say is if you don't know that you need FIPS, then you probably don't need FIPS. It's kind of the good rule of thumb.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, we are talking to a lot of customers in very secured environments, government customers, et cetera. So yeah, this is almost a prerequisite for them to even put workloads on their network. So this is great for getting us into these environments. Excuse me. All right. Any other questions for Keith while we have him and we're talking about FIPS? Okay, silence is a no. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I do have a quick question that just came to mind, which is sometimes people are asking for kind of the architectural recommendations, or instead of them trying to decide exactly which settings they want, like, is this the secure mode OSM? Is this the ultra compliant, turn the compliance dial to 11 OSM? Like, I'm wondering if we are going to put some samples or examples or use this config file or these settings. I don't know, just some sort of more opinionated, because I know people ask for that sometimes. If we haven't
Yeah.
already done that. Maybe we
Um,
have. I haven't even looked to see, but perhaps we have. But yeah. How do we
Go ahead, Keith.
showcase
This is
the recommendations
your-
for this?
Yeah. So as far as recommendations for kind of that dial you mentioned, I still say the rule of thumb is probably if you haven't explicitly been told that you need to be FIPS compliant, you probably don't need what I just showed. As far as what a working like FIPS situation looks like, that's probably a good candidate for a blog post on our documentation side, or even possibly on the the Azure docs or something like that. But especially for sure on our open source documentation to say, hey, if you want to use OSM, hey, set this install flag to be pushed to this image in the Helm chart, or use this flag here. You can double check with this. Here's some common errors that might happen if something went wrong in the process, and here's where to go. Come to our Slack channel if you went into issues with that. I think that would be super useful for the community as they're trying to get started with this new mode of operation for OSM. Good call out there.
Yeah, no, the kind of the genesis of this work was, FIPS is part of like the FedRAMP, like regulatory compliance. And so we can actually kind of call that out, for OSM, because this is really the only place OSM is part of anything that FIPS has on not FIPS, but FedRAMP has on its list, since we are passing traffic. But yeah, I think, might be, let me think about that. But I think, let's just kind of look at kind of industry compliance or governance type of programs out there, and with now that we have FIPS, and just see where OSM can slot in. So if someone's looking, hey, is OSM FIPS, is OSM FedRAMP compliant? We can at least say, hey, yeah, we meet the FIPS requirement under the FedRAMP compliancy governance, or whatever you want to call it. Awesome. All right, thank you again, Keith. This is pretty exciting work, and it's really going to broaden the adoption for people in those secure environments. So I'm assuming we'll probably close the loop on the control plane, and then I guess in the next month or so, we'll start investigating the Envoy side of things to make sure FIPS is at the data plane, I'm assuming.
Yep, that's the idea. There's no, because it's just a CI run, there's not necessarily a requirement that this stays within a release cycle.
Right.
But I do feel pretty confident in saying that we should have FIPS for both the sidecar and the control plane by v1.3 launching in October, I think.
All right, hey, you put it out there. I'm just gonna hold you to it.
I'm confident.
That, that's
I'm
promising. Hey, if we could get that in V.1.3, that this will be a pretty awesome year for OSM. So yeah, so looking forward to that.
feel like I've committed one of the 7 deadly sins of open source.
Yeah,
And
you
say
did. Yeah, you did. Now everybody is going to
I
be looking
mean,
for that.
that's great. Everyone will be excited because they'll probably be thinking about it in the context of KubeCon. So,
Yeah. All
even,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
So I think that's all the major agenda items. I do want to call out one thing, since we got some of the core maintainers here. We do have Mudit who's joining us. Mudit, I believe you are in India, so thanks for joining. Mudit did post an issue, and he's been doing a lot of work. I've been looking at his PRs. He's actually submitted a lot of suggestions, and those have made it in. And so Mudit is asking about the way that he can move to the contribution ladder. And I believe, Mudit, your goal is to and one day be an OSM maintainer, which we would actually love. So I want to make sure, Mudit, while you're on the call, we answer all of your questions, concerns, and at least get a roadmap for you, because I know there's a lot of details in the contributor ladder. So if you want to kind of just tell us kind of what your understanding is, or any obstacles or roadblocks that you feel you may be experiencing.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil. Thanks. Interesting. So actually,
Yeah.
then the contribution ladder, what I experience is there is one like suggestion, like if you want to be a maintainer, you can assign a mentorship or some maintainer to work with. So I can take up the PR. So I have the roadmap to how to become that maintainer.
Good.
So the maintainer role. So I want to know that like how to apply for that thing, like how to approach that I want to know. Other than that, like I have been working with in OSM for past, I think around 10 months, 11 months I'm working. So that's, and I want to like level up this thing. So
Got it.
that's what my main concern was.
Okay, yeah. So I think uh, the mentorship stuff is not clear, and we know we have that in the guidelines. So let's do this. Let's commit to teaming you up with a maintainer here in the next week or so. And if you want, you can kind of look at the co-owners list or the maintainers. If there's any affinity, let us know. If not, we can kind of figure out who has the cycles to do this. I'm sure everyone's going to be excited to kind of be a mentor to you. So I don't think there's going to be a problem finding you a mentor. But yeah, let's just try to close the loop on that and make sure you're synced up with a maintainer so that you can keep progressing through the ladder and ultimately achieve that OSM maintainership there.
Yes, yeah, that will be great. Like actually, I don't know which maintainer currently have the bandwidth to do this. So that's why I asked.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is good. I mean, honestly, the contributor ladder for our project is fairly new. It's been out there, but getting to this stage is really new for us. So you're actually helping us with some of these processes. So again, thanks for bringing that to our attention. And I think I'll work with Karen and make sure that once that's asked, that we have an ETA to respond to you, and then make sure like everything keeps moving for you. So I will probably have a chat with Karen and team, and then we'll figure out again schedules, because you're in a different time zone, et cetera, and we'll figure out how the best to coordinate that mentorship for you.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
But I'm excited about that, and we're looking forward to that. All right. I think that is it. We have come to the end. I'll open it up. I think we got just a couple of minutes anyway. So if anyone wants to bring up any other topic that wasn't brought up today, we're here to chat about that. If not, we can go ahead and close this out for this month. And our next community call will actually be August 9th. And so is there any other items that anybody would like to chat about? Okay, we'll take silence as a no. All right, thanks everyone for showing up for the July call, and we will see you in a month. And have a great rest of your day or night, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you in a month. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.